This is Binghamton Now on News Radio 1290 WNBF Binghamton and WNBF.com.
And so it begins. It's Tuesday, October 15th. Go ahead, make that call. 607-772-1290. WNBF. And we welcome you to another live and local presentation of Binghamton Now. I'm the host, Bob Joseph, and we'll be here till noon. Let's see what happens. I suppose there could be some surprises. Nothing would shock me. We're exactly 3 weeks away from Election Day, 21 days to enjoy non-stop surprises. All right, let's hit the phones now. Good morning, you're caller number one. What's your first name? Where are you calling from?
I'm Paul from West Windsor.
Morning, Paul.
I've got two ideas to talk to you about. One is Mr. Wizard, and the second is Red Eye Radio. It was great this morning. God, do your listeners listen to it? It's on at 4:30 to, what is it, 6:30? But it was really great this morning. Do you mention it very often about Red Eye Radio?
I don't, no.
But it's on your 1290 schedule. Yeah, you should mention it, I think. But the second thing is Mr. Wizard. Do you remember him? You're going to show your age if you remember Mr. Wizard.
Well, I think I mainly remember him. Didn't he show up sometimes on Letterman's show before Letterman decided to stop and inviting him? Yeah, I know he had a show, but I'm not sure that I actually saw his show back in the day.
He would come on TV and talk about science, and it was when you were 5 years old and you were 6, 7, and you hear this guy talk about science, that inspired me. But it'd be great to have like a Mr. Wizard. But the reason I brought that up is I agree with you about cutting down trees and putting up solar panels. I mean, there's a place for solar panels. We'll always have them, but they're only create 5% of our total energy. I guess they want to get it up to 30 or something. I don't know, but cutting down trees and putting up solar panels, I hope people get to the point where they understand that the sun makes fossil fuels. There's decay and there's energy in the decay. For billions of years, humanity has always burned fossil fuels. And I mean, it's kind of a God-given thing. And I think we should realize that the sun, the fusion in the sun that produces their energy is going on for billions of years. And it's producing decay, and the plankton and the algae decay to the bottom of the ocean. The trees decay. The insects take care of the decay. The worms. And we get decay, and we burn the energy from the sun in some way or another. Do I make any sense?
Sure, but I'm not sure how that advances life today. But yeah, thanks for the education. Sounds like it should be an educational station.
Well, the reason I brought it up is because it's like you said, we can't keep chopping down trees and thinking.
Well, you can say you can't, but that doesn't mean they won't. Of course they will.
Know, but isn't common sense going to come all in somewhere?
Common sense? Please, come on, Paul. Common sense? Not anymore.
Well, to me, it's common sense.
Well, I know. I'm not arguing against common sense, but it's 2024. That's a 20th century quaint notion. Common sense is not going to suddenly return. It's not. Common sense isn't something you control with a light switch, where common sense has been gone for the last 2 or 3 decades, and then suddenly there's a new era of enlightenment.
Can't we find a politician that agrees with me?
I can find you a politician who will say she'll agree with you. That doesn't mean she does. I mean, the politicians will say what they need to say, depending on the audience. That's how it works. And in the end, how do you successfully change New York State or federal energy policy to make it appreciably different than it is now? That's a huge task. I'm not saying it's impossible. It's nearly impossible to change quickly.
What about drill baby?
Oh
drill?
My gosh. Aren't we over that? Come on, Sarah. Sarah Palin still looking at, and it's like she's got her binoculars. You can picture it now. She's watching Vladimir Putin with her binoculars and saying, all right, why don't you go back and get to work for the people? Stop looking at Russian President Putin and do good things for America. Appreciate your call, Paul. That's the story from West Windsor making contemporary news. It's 9:17 here at WNBF. We'll be taking calls till noon. That's what it says. Stay tuned to see if that actually plays out. Local news, WNBF.com, with the story about the future of an Endicott Church property. And we have been keeping a very close watch on this property on McKinley Avenue for well over a year and a half, ever since we heard that the First United Methodist Church was going to close, and it did in February of last year. So a question many people have had: what will happen with the church and the attached school building? It's a lot of property there, and now we have a sense of what's ahead. You can see the details at WNBF.com. Spoke with David Zuba. He has acquired that property at McKinley Avenue and Monroe Street, and you can take a look at our article, WNBF.com, and see for yourself about a new chapter for the historic church, which was built on land donated by George F. Johnson. And George F. Johnson attended services there. He spoke there. I've seen pictures, some historic images of George F. speaking at that church back in the day. Also, IBM founder Thomas J. Watson Sr. attended services at the church from time to time. So if you want to see what's going on in Endicott, a lot of vehicles pass by there. I saw the traffic count. I think, according to the traffic count, more than 7,000 vehicles pass by there every day on McKinley Avenue. So it's a high-profile property, and we'll follow the story going forward. On air at 92.1 FM, 1290 AM, online at WNBF.com. Hi, WNBF. Good morning. You're on the air. What's your first name? Where are you calling from?
This is Matt Ryan from On Assignment, listening to the J.D. Vance interview.
All right. So have you had a chance to listen to his interview with the New York Times?
Yes, I did. I listened to every word of it.
All right. And your impression?
Look, he dodged. There's no doubt he comes off as kind of when he's trying to be what they call Midwestern nice, when he's doing these interviews, that's okay. But, how do you contrast that with his persona when he's out there stumping for Trump and denying the elections and saying he will, of course, we will support the peaceful transfer of power, but, and then the most bizarre thing he tries to equate the fact that he claims there was some super way thing done to suppress Hunter Biden's laptop coming to the public, and says that cost Donald Trump millions of votes, which is no.
Well, I know that was far-fetched, but to his point,
but that's the point.
Right. Well, his point still, and I disagree with his point, but his contention was that because of the way the media behaved in 2020, that maybe it could have had an impact on how people voted in November 2020. I personally don't think it would have been enough. Let's face it, the thing about Hunter Biden's laptop, even if social media operations may have suppressed it, the story was adequately publicized, I believe. I think it would be very difficult for anyone who was of voting age not to have heard the whole Hunter Biden laptop story before Election Day.
Exactly. So my point is he's using that to not answer the question.
Right, which is what, but that's what politicians do.
No.
Yes.
True. Okay, look, if you ask me to read this and you won't let me give my assessment of what it was, then don't ask me to read something again. That's not what all politics. Tell me one thing that Kamala Harris or Walz has said similar to that. Tell me one thing.
I'm not gonna. I appreciate your call. Here's the thing. So Vance sat down with Lulu Garcia-Navarro. I want to see Kamala Harris and Tim Walz and Donald Trump also sit down for a 52-minute interview with her. And let her ask the questions. Let her ask the questions, and I want to see Tim Walz. Now I'm repeating myself, but I'm only doing this for emphasis. Tim Walz, Kamala Harris, and Donald Trump also should sit down in that same room with Lulu Garcia-Navarro from the New York Times and answer her questions. J.D. Vance, my point that I made yesterday about the interview wasn't that he really changed any of his positions or even changed overall the standard talking points, because they were basically the same. My point was, because of the way he comported himself in the interview, he came across as somebody who was rather likable and quite intelligent. So Tim Walz, Kamala Harris, and Donald Trump all ought to sign up for their interviews with Lulu Garcia-Navarro of the New York Times and sit down there for 52 or 53 minutes and answer questions. That way, it's a level playing field. And I know some people think that she's biased. Hey, she's a person. Is she biased? Yeah, probably. She's not AI. Doesn't make any difference if you're running for president or vice president. Take the questions from professional journalists, whether you think they're one of your fans or not. Just answer the questions. It's very simple. It's 9:24. You're listening to WNBF in Binghamton now. We'll be taking more calls in just a moment. First, though, I'm joined by Karen Sweet O'Neill, preview of tomorrow's informational segment. This preview sponsored by KSO Insurance Solutions. Good morning.
Good morning, Bob. How doing?
Oh, perfect.
Super.
Perfect.
Oh.
The day is off to an absolutely wonderful start.
Good. So what are we going to talk about tomorrow? We're going to talk about some good news for seniors, people that are collecting Social Security. The COLA 2025 increase has been announced. And, of course, that's the cost of living adjustment for people that are collecting Social Security. It's not as big as we would have liked. It's 2.5% for 2025, which, of course, is not an extremely large number. However, it's going to add between $45 and $46 a month to your Social Security check, depending on how much your check is and when you took it. You know, it's like last year it was 3.7%, so that's considerably higher. But, Bob, in 2023, it was 8.7%. That was one of the largest increases, if not, that Social Security has ever given its recipients. So how much of this 2.5% are people going to be able to keep within their deposit? That we'll talk about tomorrow because, of course, the government giveth away, or the government take. No, how do you say that, Bob? The government gives, the government take away. Right?
Yeah. They're not very nice. I can't say that on the air because what if they're listening? Then they might say, "Oh, you're the one who criticized government. We'll show you a thing."
They're always listening, Bob. But the thing is that you need to know how much is going to remain in your deposit, whether it's in the credit union or your savings account or your checking account at the bank in 2025 when that starts. So if we have the numbers for the Part B Medicare premium that people have to pay, and there will generally be an increase, we will also give that tomorrow. They have not come out with it yet, so I don't anticipate that happening today, but maybe. And we're also going to talk about the new prescription payment plan that has come out for people that have an option to not pay their copays at the drugstore and just add it on to their premium bill. Is that a good idea for you? And should you sign up for it? And you know what? It's really, really important, if it's not a good idea for you, just to forego that. And we'll talk about the pluses and minuses of that program. We are at 1708 Vestal Parkway East, up above Plato's Closet in Style Encore. You can reach us several ways for an appointment. You can simply give us a call at 607-772-4898. You can also Google us at KSO Insurance. All our contact information comes up, including our website. You can make an appointment that way, or if you missed the phone number, we do have a big display ad under insurance in the Yellow Pages.
Excellent.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Karen. We'll talk tomorrow at approximately 9:20.
Very good. Have a great day.
You too. 9:30, this is WNBF Binghamton, serving the Northeast and North America and a grateful world. Let's take another call, shall we? I think we shall. Hi, WNBF. Good morning. You're caller number 3. What's your first name? Where are you calling from?
John from Binghamton. I always want to be number 1.
Well, you're like Hertz. You're number 3.
Ah, geez.
You can always strive, though. There's always tomorrow where you could be caller number 1. What's on your mind?
435 Main Street. I don't follow the news that much, but it seems to be condemned by the Johnson City Fire Marshal a day before today's the day of the public hearing. Who would benefit by sabotaging the electrical system to the point where the building is condemned and the people have to leave? Who would benefit by that? Who called code? Who dropped the dime? And can a project of this magnitude, can you qualify for all this state money if there is an unsafe to the point of condemnation of the electrical system in the building?
It's a good question.
I would think, and Mayor Maney is front and center on this issue, but there's also a fire marshal, paid employee. You would think that a news release would go out. One can speculate that this might be somebody that didn't want to leave the building and thought that they could vandalize it and stay, which would be odd.
That'd be very strange.
You can speculate that it would be a competitor, but what is the value of the building now, do they want to clear that building out of there? I mean, this is very, very strange. And
I wonder what impact that would have on the apartment development project that's been proposed.
Well, the public hearing tonight, how can you proceed with a public hearing when you're talking about giving tax benefits to a condemned building? I mean, how would you get that uncondemned? That is, this is very strange. And are the police investigating it? That's the other thing.
We will see what we can find out.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, John. It's 9:33 at News Radio, WNBF. Thank you, Rich, for that information. Yeah, I was going to stop by there. I almost did, but I was running late because I had already stopped at two other places. But, Rich, thank you for the info and the photo. Maybe we'll use that for a story. I've been keeping an eye on that anyway, but thank you, Rich. By the way, if you have news tips, things that you think I ought to know about, send them to bob@WNBF.com. bob@WNBF.com. I would like to have a shorter email address, but I've been told that's probably about as good as it's going to get. At least for now. It's like b@WNBF.com. To be or not to be? That is a question. Here's the weather for those who need it, and we all do. Mostly cloudy today, according to the National Weather Service. A chance of showers, low 48. High 48. It'll just feel like a low. How low can they go? Tonight they're going to go down to 34 with showers likely, cloudy skies. And tomorrow will be cloudy with rain and snow showers, high 48. Right now it's 41 in downtown Binghamton. It's 9:36. Good morning. You're caller number 4. What's your first name? Where are you calling from?
I am from Hofstad.
Good morning. Welcome. We love our Susquehanna County listeners.
Okay, I just want to talk about the fellow that called a little bit ago. Vance is very smart. He's the smartest one out of all 4 of them. I just want to make that comment. He's a smart man, and he should be running for president.
He will be. He will be. And, I guarantee, unless something better comes along. See, that's one of the reasons why I think sometimes we wind up with the sometimes abysmal selection of candidates every 4 years, is because the best and the brightest opt to stay in private enterprise where they can make more money.
I don't think anybody wants that job.
No, just between you and me, and I'm not denigrating any of the candidates or, for that matter, any of our presidents. I just want to say this, and it's going to sound blunt, but this is what I think. Who in their right mind would want to be president of the United States?
I know. I mean, they get shot at. They get condemned.
And even when it's not any kind of threat of physical violence, in this day and age, at least, at any given time, at least 50% of the people don't like you, and probably on some days, close to 95% of the people don't like you. And they, for an assortment of reasons. So it's like, who can stand that type of scrutiny and that type of nonstop criticism?
I don't think anybody wants the job.
No. Well, and how can you sleep? How can you sleep at night knowing that there are at least 1,000 trouble spots that you know about. And then the bigger worry is in the next 24 hours, is there going to be some trouble spot that suddenly appears that nobody was even paying attention to?
That's true.
Yeah, but J.D. Vance, I have to say, the interview, and I still encourage people to see that New York Times interview, all 52 minutes. The interview changed my perception of Vance. It had nothing to do with issues. It just had to do with the way he handles himself. And, yeah, he's smart.
Himself, and he's very presidential to me. He reminds me of John Kennedy.
Yeah.
Because I was around when he was around.
Well, and he's, that same basic age. That's why if people are concerned about the policies that the Republican ticket is accentuating this year, I think they have, even this is regardless of how this year's election goes, whether Republicans or Democrats take the White House this year, I'd say if you are opposed, or for that matter, if you like the Republican policies as they are being articulated during this election campaign, then get set for 2028 and 2032 and 2036, because unless J.D. Vance decides that he wants to stay out of the public eye, which he could, because he's so smart, he and his wife and his kids might say, it's nice.
Might change their mind.
Yeah, it's nice to be able to serve America, but it's a lot nicer to have a quieter and more private life.
Right. Well, I was Democrat for years, until 2 years ago, and I should be, what do you call the one in the middle? Independent? Independent. I should be independent, right. And I might register independent because I vote for the person, not for the party, which most people should do, is vote for the person.
That's what I do. And I've never been registered with a political party, and I don't intend to. Unless I run for president, then I'll have to choose a party.
You're smart to be independent.
Yeah.
And that's what I might switch to, because I did switch to Republican, but my views are more independent because I listen to, I listen to both sides and then make a decision. That's what people should do, is listen to both sides of the issue and then decide who matches their ideas,
Yeah. Well, I appreciate your call. And yeah. I actually think, and this is not based on any scientific research, it's a gut feeling, I actually think most people who listen to this program would tend to describe themselves as independent-minded. Even if they're registered as a Republican or a Democrat, I think most view themselves as independent-minded. Now, obviously, we could come up with a list of names, people who are Republican and conservative through and through, or those who are Democratic and progressive through and through. But I still think the vast majority of people who listen, not necessarily those who call in, but people who listen to the program on a regular basis are independent, and that they choose for every office, for every office, whether it's for federal, national office, state,
Senator,
or local office.
Or congressman.
Yeah,
I believe that too.
I don't know. Well, yeah, some elections when there aren't too many people on the ballot, I might vote, as it turns out, for everybody or all candidates from the same party. But say if there are a lot of candidates, lots of offices, it's very rare that I would vote one row over another. I consider
you should vote for, look over each candidate and decide that way. Look over each one.
That's what I try to do. I try to consider everything I know, including, say, sometimes interviews, if I've been able to interview some candidates at the local level, or I try to read a lot, too. And I try to listen to multiple sources, including some sources that sometimes people think, well, they they have their talking points or they have their own axe to grind or whatever. It's like, hey, I'll try to listen to 10 or 12 different sources over the course of a period of weeks and try to get an accurate picture of what's really going on.
Right. I'm 72, so I've been around this world, and I'll tell you, I believe everybody out there should listen and make a good decision, and I'm not telling you to vote either way, but I'm just saying, make a good decision on your part, which you know, will make your mind at ease.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Have a good
Bye-bye.
day. It's 9:43 at WNBF, 92.1 FM, 1290 AM. Stay connected using the free WNBF app. We'll be taking calls until noon. So, if you're the type of person who has something to say, you can use your phone and say it on the program. 607-772-1290. I'm Bob Joseph. Tuesday morning, WNBF. As the thoughts and talk continues, remember the news is on the air on WNBF with local and regional news at the top of the hour. And then, of course, we have people who just drop in randomly. Hi.
How are you?
Been on Birdsell Street lately?
I'm on Birdsell Street all the time.
Yeah. I saw there's some other guy over there in West Endicott. Apparently showed up on, I don't know if it was Sunday, Monday.
Are we on the air? The last time I popped in, we just started chatting.
Yeah,
I didn't know we were on the air.
Yeah, we are.
Settled in.
Yeah, everybody loved that. Right?
Not everybody, Bob.
Yeah, I know. Not everybody. Hey, what can I say? You know,
all good.
Everybody
that's what happens when I just drop in on schedule.
Okay.
You're like
everybody.
In the middle of your
we have an open door policy.
That's right. I love that.
Yeah. Anyway, welcome.
Thanks.
Josh Riley is here on the radio, and anytime you enter, anytime
you told me this last time.
The theory is anytime that you are in the hallway,
you're on the air.
Assume that there's an open mic.
Yeah,
we don't have mics out there, but.
I learned my lesson, because normally you do these, you get settled in, and they're like, all right, you're ready to go on, but you just get right into it.
No, this is not 60 minutes.
Yeah.
Do you mind if I take a picture?
You can do it, yeah.
All right. I don't want trouble.
Thanks for the heads up this time.
Yeah, I don't want trouble. All right, well, yeah. I'm going to send this to Vaughn Golden from the New York Post.
There you go, yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw the New York Post article.
I actually had a chat with Vaughn yesterday afternoon.
Did you?
We were talking about West Endicott.
Yeah.
He knew, because Vaughn Golden was familiar with me from the time he worked here in Binghamton at WSKG Public Media.
Sure. Yeah.
This is not public media. This is WNBF. We rake in huge stacks of cash media.
Sure.
But Vaughn called because he was curious about EJ houses.
Sure.
Yeah. So what we're talking about, Mark Molinaro, the Republican candidate, or as you would say, my opponent, he tweeted, I guess was that trolling you by putting that picture of him at somebody's house over on Birdsell Street?
Yeah, I don't know what that was. By the way, it was so I saw it in the New York Post.
Yeah.
By the way, if you look at it and you zoom in, I could tell it's Lisa Fallon's old house that he's standing in front of. And thanks, Lisa, if you're listening, for having my yard sign in your yard. I appreciate it. Look, I don't know. I would go knock on doors in his hometown too, but Yonkers is very, very far away, and it would be a big waste of my time to go that far outside the district with 3 weeks until the election. I don't know. I guess the serious thing is about, for him, I suppose it's a joke. I don't know what he's thinking. Maybe he was trying to be funny. But the reason.
Didn't you think it was a little funny? Or, I mean, didn't it bring like just a tiny smile to your face that, Mark Molinaro, your opponent, actually showed up on the street. Now, How far was that from your home?
So he was down. So he was down on the 400 block. So you know how on Birchall Street you skip the 200. Yes. So he was down on the last block. So that was actually the block where my great-great-grandparents got their first house in Endicott.
An EJ house?
Yeah, EJ house. They all are down on that street. So he was probably 5,
That's
6.
why I told Von Golden.
Yeah.
I've had the pleasure of living in an EJ house on June Street.
So you know exactly. And one thing Pop taught me about when I would go cut the grass down at my great-grandpa's house down on the 400 block, and you would always come in afterwards down the side doors that they have. And he told me that they built those because the tanners would come home, and instead of tracking all the filth through the house, it was your separate way down into the washroom. So you know how they all have that side door there? Doesn't that make sense? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, because it's a weird place.
My grandfather worked at the tannery there on Page Avenue. I was probably told that once by my grandpa or my mom, but because
it's a weird place to put a door on a house.
It is
over there, right? Yeah, exactly. So
mystery solved.
Mystery solved. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know what he's thinking half the time. But for me, I guess it's supposed to be a joke, maybe, whatever. Me going down to Yonkers and knocking on doors in his childhood neighborhood, that's also a joke. But what isn't is that I got into politics in large part to fight for that neighborhood and for neighborhoods like it across upstate New York. So for him to go down to Birchall Street and treat it as a political prop and treat it as a joke, he can do whatever he wants. For me, I'm in this because I've seen neighborhoods like that where really hardworking people have been sold out by corrupt politicians and big, powerful corporations. I mean, I think I said this the other night during our debate. I still, to this day, could not tell you the political party of the people that I grew up with in West Endicott. Mike Davis, I don't know if you're listening, down the street, the Seshas next door to me. To this day, I couldn't tell you if they're Democrats or Republicans, but I could tell you we all loved each other. Everybody took care of each other. Everybody worked their tails off. Sorry, we're on live radio.
Remember, you're on the radio. It's not a podcast.
Yeah.
It's not Howard Stern.
Worked their tails off. And I saw, when I was growing up, my great-great-grandparents came. They got their first house, EJ house, on the 400 block of Birchall Street. My great-grandparents lived there, Pop and Grandma. And then my grandparents were over on Dixon Street. I don't think that one was an EJ house over there. And then I grew up in the EJ house down on the 100 block of Birchall Street, and I saw a community with an incredibly strong middle class, a really tight-knit community. I remember growing up, we would have the block parties where you'd block off all the traffic and everybody would go out and there'd be, music and beer and food. And I saw what a strong middle class looked like, and I saw what an economy looked like where hardworking people could share in the rewards of their labor. And then I saw what happened as my generation was coming up, and politicians who are corrupt as hell sold us out to the special interests. I mean, when NAFTA came into effect, when they let China into the WTO, it destroyed communities by shipping tons of good manufacturing jobs overseas. And I looked around at that time growing up, and I mean, Bob, we've talked about this a million times. Anybody who knows the first thing about me knows that I delivered the newspaper. And I would read the headlines about all of our plants closing down. It literally felt like, as a kid, I was delivering bad news to my neighbors. And we have the actual headline. This isn't hyperbole. We have the actual newspaper about, more layoffs expected in the Triple Cities, and on the same page how great that was for Wall Street and for earnings. And so I looked around at the time, and I looked around and I realized I don't know any lawyers. The big corporate PACs that are making record profits and ripping people off and selling people out, they have a ton of lawyers. All these politicians are either lawyers or they have lawyers. And I look around my neighborhood, and there's nobody, at least as far as I know, with a law degree. And so I decided to work my tail off to become a lawyer and to give voice to communities like the one that I was raised in. And my opponent, I know he has a lot to say about a lot of things. None of it's true. What is true is that all of the work that I've done in my legal career has been rooted in my experience growing up in West Endicott. That's why the very first job I took was at the Labor Department, representing workers and advocating for workers who lost their jobs because of bad trade deals. It's why I represented kids in poverty who needed health care. It's why I did so much to fight the opioid epidemic.
Let's talk about last week's debate. It was, well, how would you describe it? A lot of people have have chimed in about how that went.
How did it go? You tell me. I was...
You were a participant. I want to know what your perspective is here a few days later after your live debate with Mark Molinaro.
It's not terribly difficult to have a debate when the facts and the truth are on your side. One of the big issues in the debate was access to abortion services and reproductive freedom. And that is a big issue for a lot of voters across the district, not just because of the here and now with respect to abortion rights, but also because it signals that we cannot take for granted a lot of rights that folks have, whether that's the right to retire with dignity or the right to marriage equality or so forth. My opponent has a lot to try to say on this now, and he's spending a lot of money and running around saying certain things. But voters are really smart. They really are. They do their homework. They understand what the issues are. They're able to see through all of the noise and all of the things on TV. And voters know that this guy has a voting record on this issue. And it's not just a voting record from, the last couple of months since the campaign has really heated up. It's a 30-year career as an anti-choice politician. He opposed Roe v. Wade when he was in the state government. And since he's been in the federal government for 2 years, he's voted 13 times to restrict abortion rights. And behind closed doors in the fall of 2022, he expressed his support for an abortion ban. So when we're litigating an issue like that, for me, it's about the policy, and we're on the right side of it.
In his latest news release, and he hammers away at these issues, as you know, basically all campaign. He says you put illegal immigrants first and will support policies that keep the border open to criminals, spend billions of your tax dollars on perks for illegal immigrants, and bankrupt Social Security. And he said that's why you are dodging voters. For example, you didn't appear at a candidate forum in Ulster County. So we only have about a minute left before the news comes on.
Yes.
I mean, you can stay after the news.
I'll stick around because there's a lot to address there. I will tell you, I wish I could have gone to the Ulster County Chamber event at 7 o'clock this morning, but it did not work with our schedule. I've done a lot of events in Ulster County, including we're doing some roundtables in Ellenville coming up later this week. But let's go to news, and then I'll stick around and we can talk about that issue because there's a lot there and it's important.
All right. And yes, we will. So you can stick around after we've got a 10-minute news break. You
sure.
Can stick around. All right.
We can do that, right? Yeah, let's do it.
You control his schedule? Well, somebody has.
Yeah. we can do that, right?
Are you sure?
Yeah.
It's not going to throw the whole thing off, right? Okay. I don't want to hear on November 6th it's because he stayed an extra 10 minutes here at WNBF that, All right. More with Josh Riley coming up live and local on News Radio, WNBF. It's Tuesday morning. I'm Bob Joseph. You're listening to Binghamton Now. In the studio with us is Josh Riley, Democratic candidate for Congress in New York's 19th District. Thanks for sticking around after the news break. Let's talk immigration, because that I know immigration is considered one of the biggest issues, as well as abortion rights. And you keep getting pounded, whether it's during a debate or the TV commercials, by the incumbent Republican Mark Molinaro on immigration. So he says basically it comes down to, if you pay attention to the commercials, that you're responsible for thousands, if not tens of thousands, of people who are in the United States illegally.
Look, he is so desperate to avoid talking about his record of failure on this that he's doing two things. Number one, he's just making things up and lying. And the other thing is he's looking for anybody under the sun who he can blame for this problem other than taking responsibility himself. I said this during the debate the other night. The guy spent 30 years in state and local government, and every turn in state and local government, he blamed the federal government. Now he's in the federal government, and so he blames the state and local government. At some point, just stop screwing around and do your job. I am so frustrated, and a lot of our voters, and I'm sure a lot of your listeners, are so frustrated with these politicians playing games with this issue instead of trying to solve it. And look, I've been very, very critical of the Biden administration on this. I think it's politicians from both parties, Democrats and Republicans. They would rather play around with this thing for politics than actually solve the problem. And my opponent had a proposal in front of him on the table. It was a bipartisan bill. It was supported by the Border Patrol Union. And if he had raised his hand and said he supported it, and if that bill had become law, it would have solved a lot of these problems a long time ago. But he's not interested in solving the problem. He's interested in having a problem to campaign on. And think about it. All these ads that you've seen out there, can you remember one single ad that he's run during this campaign where he's talked about one single thing that he's accomplished for one single person to make their life better across this district? I haven't seen it. It doesn't exist because he doesn't have a record of accomplishments to run on. All he has to run on is this issue. And unfortunately for him, it's an issue that he's been a complete failure on. So I understand as a candidate, it's not enough for me to just tell your listeners why he's doing it wrong. I owe you my vision for how I'm going to do it right. And here's what it is. We need to send thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of additional agents to the border. I support physical barriers along the border where it makes sense to have those. The first thing you do when you're in a hole is stop digging. The first thing we need to do with our immigration system is secure the border. So that's the first thing. The second thing is we need tons of additional immigration judges to process paperwork so that when people are coming here legally, they have their cases heard within a matter of a couple of weeks instead of right now where it's taking 4 years to do it. So that's a big piece of this. And then a third part of this for me is I am hearing from our dairy farmers across this district, all of our farmers, frankly, but in particular our dairy farmers, folks in small businesses and hospitality, that they have a shortage of labor, and we should fix our immigration system so that if people come legally, they can work and they can pay taxes and contribute to the economy. That's my plan. It's a serious plan. All my opponent has offered on this is failure, politics, and frankly, conspiracy theories about pets being eaten by immigrants, which is that's just not how we talk about each other here in upstate New York.
You told me during the news break that your mom's listening?
Yeah, I think she is. Hi, Mom. If you're listening, I told Bob you would be on and that you asked me to talk about the lies they're saying about Social Security. Can I do that for her?
Yeah. Did you see that Mark Molinaro has a commercial on with his mom?
I think that's what prompted. No. I saw that, but I think he's running some other stuff. I mean, look, on Social Security, here's the deal. Again, I'm going to tell you how my opponent's failing, and then I'm going to tell you what I want to do to make it right. My opponent voted for a massive cut to the budget for the Social Security Administration. That would have, if it had become law, God forbid, resulted in the closure of hundreds of Social Security offices across the district, including several here. He has expressed his support for what he calls a bipartisan blue ribbon commission to, quote, look at Medicare and Social Security. Well, every single expert who has studied what a commission like that would look like has concluded that it would lead to cuts to Medicare and Social Security. And this isn't hypothetical. In the past, we've had these commissions, and every time there's been one of these commissions, it has proposed devastating cuts to Medicare and Social Security. So this is actually the worst of politics. This is exactly what you would expect a career politician to do. He wants to cut Medicare and Social Security, but he doesn't want the blame for it. So he's supporting this Trojan horse that will go and make the cuts so that he can pretend his hands are clean from it. That's just not acceptable. My plan is to protect and strengthen Medicare and Social Security. One of the things that I agree with Donald Trump on is that we should not be taxing Social Security benefits. So look, if Donald Trump wins his election, I win my election, one of the things I'm going to want to work with him on is ending the tax on Social Security benefits. It'd be one of the biggest tax cuts for seniors in this country. It would lift a lot of seniors out of poverty. And everybody always says, well, Josh, how are you going to pay for these things? How are you going to pay for these things? Right now, our Social Security system is structured in such a way that billionaires like Elon Musk, who, side note, just sent a $500,000 check to my opponent's campaign, is paying about 0.000000001% of his income into Social Security, whereas my sister, who's a public school teacher in the North Country, is paying a much higher percentage. And so we should lift the cap on Social Security so that the very wealthy have to pay their fair share into it. That would allow for long-term solvency. It would allow for me to implement a tax cut for seniors so that they're not paying taxes on their Social Security. And I don't think it's unfair to ask Elon Musk to kick in more than 1% of his income. Now, my opponent obviously won't support that because why? Because Elon Musk just cut him a check for $500,000. You think Elon Musk cares at all about upstate New York? At all? No, he cares about keeping his taxes low. It's corruption. That is what I talk when I'm talking about the corruption in our politics. That is what I'm talking about.
So you mentioned a $500,000 contribution. I know the last time you were here, we talked about just how much money is being dumped into this race, New York 19. And as far as I can tell, yeah, with contributions like that, but you're also continuing to raise a lot of money. In fact, let's talk more of just a current update. Here we are 3 weeks away from the election. What's the latest on how much money that you're likely to spend and based on the estimates of what's going to be spent either by Mark Molinaro or interest on his behalf?
Well, here's what is really important about this is it's less how much money has been raised and more how the money is being raised. My opponent has taken $1 million in corporate PAC contributions. So these are contributions coming from entities like Koch Industries. There's a massive sugar conglomerate in Florida that is funding his campaign. Do they care about upstate New York? They don't care about upstate New York. They care about his position on the Agriculture Committee and keeping their profits high. He's taken $10,000 from NYSEG and tens of thousands of dollars from the utility monopolies at large. And then he put his head in the sand when they went and jacked up rates by 60%. He's taken $200,000 in corporate PAC checks from big ag monopolies. And then they run around upstate New York, crush our small farmers, jack up grocery prices. And meanwhile, what does he do? He helps them by cutting law enforcement for the antitrust laws that are supposed to hold these big, powerful entities in check. So he is doing what politicians have done for a long time. And look, I'll say this as a Democrat, the most bipartisan thing in Congress is the corruption. Both Democrats and Republicans are swimming in these corporate PAC checks, and then they go off to office and they do what's best for the corporate PACs and not what's best for the folks on Bertzel Street. So when I got into politics, one of the first pieces of advice I got, everybody told you, you got to take all this corporate PAC money. And I said, you don't. We can do this the right way. over 90% of contributions to my campaign are under $50. And even while running a grassroots campaign like that, we've managed to raise more money than my opponent. Last thing I'll say on this, even though that's true, my campaign, running a grassroots operation, has raised more money than his campaign, which is swimming in corporate PAC checks. At the end of the day, we're probably going to end up being outspent in this election because folks like Elon Musk and the oil industry are coming in here and dumping tens of millions of dollars in dark money to try to keep me out of Congress because they know that once I get there, I'm going to hold them accountable.
One final thing. I was intrigued by this, and you tweeted this a few days ago. David Letterman and Al Franken need your help to elect Josh Riley in New York 19. This is one of the most important races in the entire country and will help decide the House majority this November. So Josh is counting on your support. Will you donate today? And for our listeners who actually haven't seen it on Twitter or elsewhere, let's listen to this 20-second clip.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody. I'm Dave Letterman. Take a look.
I'm Al Franken.
Yeah.
I'm Josh Riley, running for Congress.
Guess what? We're the same height, the three of us. Exactly
the same height. Chip in a couple dollars to help us down the stretch here. Really appreciate
That's
that.
right. You're not going to meet taller men.
I don't know if it's as funny on the radio as it is.
Amusing. It's amusing to me because I was a big Letterman fan, although I don't recognize him these days.
Yeah, well, he's got that.
More like St. Nick.
Exactly. He's got that big beard.
Than Letterman. How did that happen?
So first of all, for viewers who haven't seen it, the joke in it is that I'm about 6'6". David's probably, I don't know, I'm guessing. I'm going to get in trouble here. He's shorter than me by a decent bit. And then Al is even shorter than him. And so we stood on a hill so that it makes us all look like we're the same height. But then the camera comes out and it shows that we're not. And I think that's the joke in it. But I used to work.
Where was it shot?
So we were doing a big event, grassroots fundraiser in Columbia County in Gallatin a few weeks ago. And the invitation went out far and wide, and David Letterman got in touch the night before, I think, and said, "Hey, can I come and support?" And of course, he could. So I'm happy to have his help.
All right. The only thing he ever gave me was a ham. back when his show on CBS was in its early days. The person who would ask a question before the taping started would get a 3-pound ham, and so
I never would have thought growing up on Bertzel Street I'd have the honor of someday being able to spend an evening with David Letterman.
Do you think that kind of support is going to make a difference as far as, obviously, gets you attention on a hometown radio station? It got mentioned in the New York Times article. Does that help bring in some money, including from outside the district, that your campaign will need between now and November 5th?
Well, that event was in district in Gallatin and drew at least 200 people probably to it. So it was a big in-district event, both to raise money for the campaign, also to get out the vote. And so, I mean, the thing for me that's really important about this is showing the world that you can run a congressional campaign in as competitive a district as this and as expensive as a race as this, and you don't have to take the corporate PAC money. You can do it through the small dollar donation. So a video like that, I don't know, maybe a few dozen people chipped in $5. I would rather have $5 from a whole bunch of everyday folks than a $5,000 check from NYSEG.
Are there going to be any additional debates?
We're not scheduled to have any. I accepted 3 debate invitations. One was supposed to be with the Broome Chamber on the 3rd. There was the one that we had, and then I accepted another with Binghamton TV stations here that ended up, I think what they ended up doing was just consolidating that one with the one in Albany.
Should there be, it seems to me that you and Mark Molinaro had ought to be in another TV debate between now and November 5th. Do you think there's any chance of it happening at this stage? I
mean, I'm not ruling it out. I think we had, what I would really encourage your listeners, I would very much encourage your listeners to to watch the replay of the last debate that we had. It's available. You can get it on our Facebook page. You can get it on our Twitter account, whatever the other social medias are. as my campaign manager is grimacing. I've become an old man very quickly, Bob. It's on our social media pages. You can watch the entire thing there, and I think it laid out a pretty clear contrast in visions.
Josh Riley, the Democratic challenger in the 19th District in New York, facing the Republican incumbent, Mark Molinaro. Thank you for your time. Thanks for
Bob.
Sticking around.
Yeah, happy to do it. Thanks, Bob. Thanks, everybody.
Your schedule.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Bob.
1027. We're live and local. WNBF. Taking calls now at 607-772-1290. It's live. It's local. Hi, you're on the air. What's your first name? Where are you calling from?
Tom from Endwell.
Hey, good morning, Tom.
I'm on the air now?
You're on the radio. Good morning.
Good morning. That interview was pretty cool. There was definitely at least 3 questions that I was praying that you would ask him when it came to the border. The first one was, do you think it was the right move for Joe Biden and Kamala to take down all the policies that Trump had in place? The second question is, because all I hear is it's a bipartisan bill, the second question I was hoping to hear is how many illegals are allowed to come in per week? And the third one, because he's talking about Social Security and this, that, and the third, is how much money is the American people paying from the border down the line to take care of all these illegals with clothing, medical, school, housing, food, and all those things? None of those questions were asked. And I find it crazy that those 3 questions are never asked. Matt Ryan don't speak about how many illegals are going to be allowed to come in per week because it's 5,000. 5,000 illegals, from what I can gather out of that bill, are allowed to come in per week. Do the math, just monthly. And those questions are never brought up. And I was really hoping that you would put his foot to the fire with this, but you didn't. You let this guy come in and sound like knight in shining armor, and you didn't ask him any questions. And I think we, the viewers in your district, should know.
Well, they do know.
They don't know.
What? They have access to all the information you do. What do you think? You have cornered the market on information? They have information.
But why don't you ask the questions? They never ask the questions.
I'll ask the questions. First of all, he stayed longer than he planned, and so he was on probably for, I didn't run a stopwatch, but I would say on the air probably 20, 25 minutes. If you don't like the questions, well, hey, what can I say? It's inevitable. It's inevitable that you're not going to like my questions. I know. I know a few other people who don't like my questions. It's a guarantee.
Bob, they're good questions. They're great questions.
Yeah, I asked some good questions, too. I didn't say your questions are unimportant. I asked some good questions, too. Did I ask your questions? I didn't. Did I ask some good questions? I believe I did.
But let me ask you a question. With all these illegals coming in, is that helping our housing shortage?
No.
With all these illegals coming in,
no. More people vying for a limited quantity of housing, whether it's in Binghamton or Birmingham. No, it's not helping our lack of housing. No, I didn't. I never said it did.
Does allowing more illegals, does that help our homeless?
No, but does allowing more people to come into America to share the promise that we have been fortunate enough to get, most of us thanks because we won the birth lotto and we were born here, even though some listeners beg to differ, and we're not going to open up that discussion again because there's absolutely nothing to be accomplished by it. But I believe that those of us who were born in Binghamton or elsewhere in the United States who are just very fortunate. And so I think that as Americans, we ought to do more to allow more people to have access to the American dream. Do I think that having wide open borders is in anyone's best interest? No.
Bob, the problem is you can't take care of others when you can't even take care of yourself. America right now, with a housing shortage, the homelessness, issues with our elderly and taking care of our elderly, if we had all those things in order and we were 100% good, then yes. But until we get to that point, why are we just going to add a larger problem to America and to the American people? That doesn't make sense. And those are the questions that I wished you would have asked them. Because I guarantee you, as soon as you asked them, he'd have stumbled. Why do you think Matt Ryan doesn't bring up, this is how many illegals are allowed to come in. This is why we want more judges, so we can process them faster. Your guy did say that. So, and the other thing is, when is enough enough?
I don't know. I know what you think. I know what you think. I don't know. I'll be the first to admit. I don't know what the limits ought to be. I know it's a system that's broken and needs to be fixed, but as far as specifics, I don't know. I don't have an answer.
And the thing is, if they passed that bill, Bob, people would line up like it was a ride. They were getting on a ride. And 5,000 a day, 5,000 a day, 5,000 a day.
Well, I think this country can accommodate 5,000 a day.
Yeah, how many is that a month?
I don't know. I've got my calculator here. It's irrelevant. I think this country with 330 or so million people can accommodate 5,000 a day. But I haven't done any research. I'm just throwing it out there. I don't know. Maybe this country can only accommodate 50 a day. I don't know. I'm just saying the system's broken and needs to be fixed. And it's going to require Republicans and Democrats to somehow work together.
So the smartest thing to do is to tear down all those policies, let millions come in.
I didn't say that. Are we having a phone connection problem? Because I think what I said made a lot of sense, and you didn't acknowledge it.
I'm having a conversation with you, Bob.
Yeah, but you didn't acknowledge what I just said. You should say, Bob, that makes a lot of sense.
Bob, very little of what you say makes any sense when you're not asking the guy a question that's running for our district.
I'm on record as saying no matter what questions I ask of candidates, there are going to be listeners who don't like the questions. I know that. It's not going to deter me. It's just the way it is. When I watch 60 Minutes and Leslie Stahl, there are questions I wish she would ask. It's the nature of the beast. We all have questions that we want to have asked, and many times they're not going to be asked.
Bob, I brought this bill up when it got brought to the table, and I told you.
Right, I know. Remember, I listen to every second of the program. I hear more of this program than you do, so I was here. Yes, I know you have. I haven't said that you aren't consistently bringing up this issue. You are.
So why have you still not asked that question? It's been months.
Hey, Josh Riley told me he's coming back to the studio between now and Election Day. The next time he comes to the studio, listen, maybe I'll ask it.
Bob, I try to listen to your show every day.
Well, and I appreciate it. I appreciate because you are, I know you're one of the more loyal listeners, and you listen, if not every day, almost every day. I get it.
And then the last thing, tell him do not use the word conspiracy theory. Matt Ryan called about Hunter's laptop. The FBI called it Russia disinformation. It was a lie. They knew it was a lie. They carried on the lie, regardless if it helped Trump or didn't help Trump. The bottom line is every time the Democrats use the word conspiracy, it winds up being true.
All right. Well, I always appreciate your call. It's 10:39 at WNBF with Bob Joseph. Let's take more calls, shall we? I think we will. Morning, you're on the air. What's your first name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, good morning, Bob. This is Vinny.
Yeah, what do you think of those really poor questions that were posed to Josh Riley?
Well, our caller, it's so interesting. Mark Molinaro's been on here many, 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 many times. He's talked about the border, and you've never called in. You've never called in and asked Bob, why don't you ask this about the border? Hey, why don't you ask this about the border? You never have. You see, this is these slick games, like I've told you before. This is why I keep honing in on this border issue, because the Republican Party doesn't have an answer. And I watched that debate. That was a really good, spirited debate. I loved it. But, I just want to say about the debate, I thought Josh Riley did good. I think he was forceful, but there was something that he said that, Bob, it changed my mind about...
Wait, hold on. Hold that thought. Yep. WNBF, good morning. You're on the air.
Bob, it's Mark Molinaro. How are you?
I'm great. Well, isn't this a special surprise? I just checked my email and saw that your office notified me that you've got some free time now and you were trying to call in. So I saw the line ringing, but I just thought it was my Uber delivery, so I apologize.
If you'd like me to deliver you food, I'm happy to. I just finished at the Ulster Candidates Forum, and I could hop in the car and drive out. I'll be back out in Binghamton a little bit later today.
That's okay. So anyway, we don't have a whole lot of time in this segment because, believe it or not, we have campaign commercials coming up between now and the top of the hour. I know that'll shock you.
Indeed.
But anyway, appreciate your calling in first. Not that this is the biggest thing, but since it came up, it was posted on Twitter, and then my good buddy and former Binghamton colleague Vaughn Golden, who used to work at WSKG, posted a short story article last night on the New York Post website. So you actually did spend some quality time in West Endicott on Birdsall Street.
I did, and by the way, I saw Vaughn this morning at the Ulster Candidates Forum. He was able to get there, and I don't mean to be smart, but with all due respect, this is the second Ulster Candidates Forum. I did this 2 years ago, where Josh Riley decided not to participate. This goes in line with the other events that he's skipped this year, and I just frankly don't. I mean, I understand it entirely, hiding behind TV ads, but I'm out in the community. And by the way, I was in Endicott quite a bit the last couple of weeks, and I think you know this. I mean, we crisscross this district extensively. I love meeting with people. I don't care where they are. I don't ask you what your party is. I don't ask you how you voted. We just are interested in listening. And was in Endicott yesterday and wanted to get a little bit more door to door in. And so we knocked on some doors around from the cider mill. We knocked on some doors on Birdsall Street, and I was down in the Little Italy section of Endicott for a bit. It's what we do. I don't think you can represent people if you're not actually out and among them. And frankly, I love listening to and learning from the people I serve.
So what's your take on Mr. Riley's position about immigration? We talked a bit about it when he was in the studio just a short time ago. I was just excoriated by a listener for not asking all the right questions about people who come into the U.S. illegally, but we did discuss it at length. And you know what Josh Riley has been saying about the issue. He basically has said in interviews and the debate and campaign commercials, both Democrats and Republicans basically have to stop screwing around on the issue and work together to get things fixed.
Yeah, it's what guys who don't care about being honest are going to say. I mean, the House of Representatives voted for the strictest border security policy in generations. It would deploy technology and physical barriers. It would increase funding and Border Patrol enforcement at the border. It would have increased the efficiency of asylum, and it would have, by the way, made sure that unaccompanied minors were protected. We passed a bill a year and a half ago. The administration decided not to negotiate, and we were prepared to. We expected that they would come forward with something perhaps not as strict as what we came up with, and we negotiate. But what Josh doesn't tell you and tries to skirt is that for the last 20 years, he's been an advocate for open borders. When the businesses left Endicott, when the corporations left Western New York, Josh Riley left with them and then went to work for them. I did my job in the House of Representatives, and I will continue to fight for security at our border, both southern border and northern border. I joined with Democrat Chris Pappas from New Hampshire to increase funding and resources for northern border security. Josh Riley went to court. He argued to dismantle the Trump border security policies. And when he went to work for Al Franken in the United States Senate, I mean, he spent more time in D.C. working in the halls of Congress than I ever have. But when he went to work for Al Franken in the United States Senate, he wrote the bill to extend mass amnesty to now what would be 10.5 million people. And with that would extend not only the sanctuary city policies that his ally, Kathy Hochul, has embraced, which, by the way, now is giving credit cards, hotel rooms, and $40,000 of New Yorkers' tax money for housing credits to illegal immigrants. And yeah, the mass amnesty bill he wrote would give Social Security benefits to those who enter into this country illegally. It is just dishonest. And I understand why, because the politics has changed. Remember, we ran against each other 2 years ago. He celebrated his fighting the Trump administration on border security. He celebrated as one of his chief accomplishments the writing of this mass amnesty bill. Well, the politics have changed. Why? Because we've seen it. You know what else happened in West Endicott? A serial murderer from Peru enters into the country at the southern border, by the way, is arrested and released by border security and ultimately transported to New York. And why would one be transported to New York? Because it's a sanctuary city state. It allows, it precludes local law enforcement. Every law enforcement agency in this district that has endorsed a candidate for Congress has endorsed me. The Border Patrol Union has endorsed me. Why? Because when you wake up in West Endicott and you find out you're living next to a serial killer from Peru, you begin to think that maybe, just maybe, the guys who work the halls and lobby for mass amnesty like Josh did are just plain wrong. And he just continues to lie about it.
Did you ever find out how Gianfranco Torres Navarro, the reputed Peruvian gang leader suspected of killing nearly 24 people in Peru, how he made it from Texas to Endicott to East Franklin Street?
After the Department of Homeland Security released the data regarding the demographic of those who have come into the country, remember about 2 weeks ago, Department of Homeland Security says there's some 600,000 known criminals in this country and 1,000 known terrorists in this country. They've shut down data, and so we're not getting any more information. But I can imagine how he got here. It's exactly the same way that the tens of thousands got here already when we were flooded. I mean, this is 4 years, Bob. 10.5 million people. That's the state of New York. I mean, I'll give or take a few million. But 10.5 million people pour into this country, tens of thousands transported with your tax money. The administration circumvented Congress, which, by the way, was Josh Riley's legal argument that the president doesn't have to follow the law. He could circumvent Congress, which he did, used federal dollars, paid not-for-profits to put in individuals that come into this country illegally on planes and transport them around the country. 80% of those who are transported around the country are transported by the federal government. Some are transported directly from Venezuela in airports in countries beyond to the south of Mexico. And so once they're transported to New York City, then the city of New York gave them money, credit cards, and resources, and they just went about their business. And no asylum-seeking process, no vetting, no criminal background checks. All of it is just, it's an abandonment of responsibility. And this isn't just, it's not rhetoric. This is a real collapse of the American border and immigration system. And Josh Riley wants you to believe that he's like, I don't know, Atticus Finch from To Kill a Mockingbird. He worked for the most politically connected law firm in the United States. I mean, Boyce Schiller is a well-known powerhouse of law in Washington, D.C. That's who paid his bills.
Speaking with Congressman Mark Molinaro, the Republican incumbent in the 19th District of New York, when Josh Riley was here a few minutes ago, he brought up the apparently $500,000 contribution your campaign has received from Elon Musk. Is that true?
No such contribution. I have not received $500,000 into my campaign.
But it's support. It's okay. It's support the Elon Musk PAC. Yes,
the America PAC is.
So explain for our listeners who don't understand how this works. And again, I know it can be complicated for some people who may not be able to distinguish, say, TV and radio ads that are actually put together by your campaign and then other ads that are put together by PACs to support your campaign. Tell people how this works and how Elon Musk, with his PAC, is supporting your campaign against Josh Riley.
Third parties around the country, you, Bob, if you had some money, could create a political action committee and go out there for $1,000, $500, $5 million, support any candidate you wish. You're allowed to exercise your freedom by doing that. And in this case, it's called America's PAC is supporting my candidacy because they're talking about freedom of speech, freedom of association. They understand that I've been fighting to not only secure the border but to protect the rights of American citizens. And additionally, and this is sort of the fraudulent campaign that Josh is running. He accepts corporate dollars, just like you figured it out, right? You can make the connection. It may not come directly into the campaign, but there are outside interests that support the major corporations Josh worked for: Chevron, Apple. I mean, I can go down the list. Major pharmaceutical companies, big technology companies. Those very corporate leaders are cutting checks to support his campaign. So he can claim he doesn't accept any corporate dollars. It's nonsense. He's taking the very dollars from the people who run the corporations, and those corporations are fueling Empire Voices, the DCCC, and all of these other third parties that are running these television ads. And again, that's his right to do it. I'll be honest with you. He just doesn't want to own up to it. But again, these are the connections he made working in Washington, D.C. I don't own $1 million house in Washington, D.C. He does. I have not made millions serving in public office. I love the work that we do. He made millions doing it. I didn't represent big corporations, nor do I work for big corporations. He did hourly. And so, it's a fraudulent, dishonest campaign. I will say this to everybody. I don't like the ads any more than anybody else does. I wish that we had more debates. I agreed to 6 of them. Josh Riley agreed to 1 of them. And this nonsense about rescheduling, he agreed to 1 of them. We agreed to 6 debates. We agreed to the rescheduled debates. And we show up because that's what should happen. This morning in Ulster, which, by the way, is a fairly large segment of the district, 11 counties, Ulster, Sullivan, Greene represented at this chamber breakfast, all in the district. Good questions. There were 3 people running for Congress who were able to find their way there. 2 years ago, same deal. 3 people running for Congress who were able to find their way there. Not him. I want to be in front of people answering your questions. I love doing it. And by the way, I'm not going to take issue with callers. I think you do a fine job. You ask me tough questions. I hope you ask the other guys tough questions. It's good. This is what it's about. And to hide behind multi-million-dollar TV ads and not show up is just being dishonest. It's malpractice. I mean, I'm certain he knows what that means.
The abortion rights issue is probably going to be equally important in this campaign with immigration. Those seem to be the 2 overriding issues, and we've had conversations with you and with Josh Riley about your positions on this issue. For people who are unclear, so you don't want a national law that protects women's rights in all 50 states, correct? When it comes to abortion rights.
Correct. More importantly than don't want it, I have, 1, said I will vote against it, and 2, have committed to blocking any such effort, and we've been successful. There has been no effort to establish a nationwide ban. And so long as I'm your member of Congress, I will continue to object to any such effort. And this is the dishonesty. You know, CNN and the Albany Times Union, CNN and the Albany Times Union both called Josh Riley's TV ads lies as it relates to my position on reproductive health and abortion. I believe that this decision ought to be left to women and their physicians. He calls into question votes taken. Those votes do not establish an abortion ban. I am not ever going to support an abortion ban. I believe that decision ought to be left to women and their physician, not Washington, D.C. And for further clarification, I was the first Republican to embrace and sponsor legislation to protect access to birth control and access to IVF, because I believe women should have the support, the tools, and the options necessary when they make the decision that they choose. And lastly, and I think as critically importantly, I lead the bipartisan coalition, Republicans and Democrats, to increase funding. I've been recognized for this effort for federal and rural health clinics, because in the communities we live, not all of them are as close proximity to a healthcare provider like perhaps in Binghamton. And of course, there are rural communities within Broome County, but throughout the entire district that don't have direct access. I want to be sure that women and families have access to quality prenatal and neonatal care and good health care. And so that's what I'm advocating for. It's what I fight for. And my record supports this. Josh is being dishonest about it, and it's simply to scare people. I will continue to fight to be sure that women are able to make that choice without Washington getting in the way.
New York Times article about this campaign appeared online Monday. The headline, in heated House race, a moderate Republican goes full Trump. The subheadline says Mark Molinaro, running against Josh Riley, has accused recent immigrants of committing violent crimes and killing pets. What was your thought about the headline over that fairly long article that appeared online on Monday?
Well, the article was relatively benign. The headline is just dishonest. Listen, they're all just trying to, and this happens consistently, inflame voters. I said this morning. Josh would know it had he attended, and of course, I say that intentionally. It is not right to simply skip out on the debates and the conversations we are to have. I am the second most bipartisan member of the United States House of Representatives. I am the most bipartisan member of the entire New York delegation, Republican and Democrat. And I am the fourth most effective member with 37 separate pieces of legislation adopted. I work with Republicans and Democrats all the time. Just as an example, work with Republicans and Democrats to increase support for the Delaware River Basin and protections of the Shenango, the Hudson River, and the Upper Delaware. I worked with union members in upstate New York to finally, after 30 years, transportation workers were trying to protect a good quality American jobs and establish a national standard for safety for 30 years.
Hey, we're running short on time in this segment. Bottom line, are you going full Trump in this campaign? Have you changed the way you conduct yourself as you face Josh Riley again?
All of that was meant to say, Bob, I am the same bipartisan, nonpartisan public official that works with Jason Garner, Donna Lepardo, Fred Akshar, Republican and Democrat to get stuff done.
Republican Congressman Mark Molinaro joining us live as he seeks another term in New York's 19th District, as he fends off another challenge from Democrat Josh Riley. Thanks for joining us. Look forward to talking with you again, maybe sometime in the studio over the next 3 weeks.
Happy to, Bob. Be well, and thank you.
Thank you. It's 10:57. We're live and local. This is News Radio, WNBF. Binghamton now. It's Tuesday in America. Good morning. And let's go back to the phone. Vinny in Binghamton, good morning. You're on the air, and welcome back. Sorry I interrupted you when you were speaking.
Nope. That's fine, Bob. I love this political talk. So no, I'm putting me on hold. Absolutely, I love that. I wanted to hear Mark Molinaro. For those of you who did not see the debate, Mr. Molinaro, he did the same thing. He avoided that last question you asked about those people in Springfield and the cats and the dogs. he skirted right around it. He did the same thing in the debate against Josh Riley. But, Bob, like I was saying before, though, I'll tell you, I've always been a big supporter on term limits for the Supreme Court. That's where I really think we should have term limits for the Supreme Court. But for politicians, I said no, because sometimes we're going to get a good one and they have to leave. But I'll tell you, watching that debate and watching Molinaro, and a couple times Josh Riley pointed to him and said, "You see, guys, this is what happens when you've been in there for 30 years." He goes, "This is the nonsense, the lies, the games." Now, as big as Broome County is, he happens to just be over on that street. Yeah, right. Yeah, we get it. This is all politics.
Of course, it's all politics. I mean, come on,
Bob,
Vinny.
I can't go out. Hey, Bob, I can't go out. I go out to my mailbox. I'll have 12 letters in there. 10 are from Molinaro, talking about, Josh Riley. Right. He wants to. I mean, that's the politics. But yet, you get a politician that's been in there that long, man. They start doing that. And Josh Riley talked about term limits. Now I'm really thinking about it. Like maybe like 6 years.
Really?
Maybe maybe 6 years, and then you got to go.
Because but then what if we wind up with somebody who is the best member of Congress ever, and then she has to leave after 6 years? What happens then? I mean,
you know what, Bob?
Because people would be deprived of perhaps the best member of Congress ever after just barely half a decade of service.
Or Bob, and I never thought about this. I didn't think about this until last night. Or you get a good member of Congress that does a great job. Who's going to replace them? Probably someone similar. Do you know what I mean? Like, let me give you an example. Marjorie Greene. Okay, they finally boot her out of there. Okay, you can't run like her because she's awful. And then you get somebody a little bit different so you can get some things done. One of the things they talked about in that debate was, you heard Mark Molinaro talk about all this stuff, all this bad stuff. And Josh Riley said, "Look, this was under your watch. I wasn't in there. You were." And once again, the border issue. We've got to stop talking, Bob, about the bad things that are happening. Oh, this guy was up here, oh my God, we got this going on here. We got that. Guys, because the border bill doesn't work. Well, why did you get rid of Trump's? He had it down and no, it wasn't working, guys. It wasn't working. I've told people how many times, and good old Joe from Owego, he looked at it. It's a more expansive full court press to get those borders fixed. Not this thing that Molinaro was talking. It's the toughest. What does toughest mean? Oh, it has this and that. Those things that he named, that's in that border bill. But there's more in the border bill. We've got to have something solid. Bob, it's like going to a brand new supermarket in the area. And you go in and, oh my God, the place is great. There's fresh produce, the meat counter, everybody's there. You got a seafood. Oh, this is great. And God, this place smells good. And Bob, you go up the front and there's 2 cashiers. 20 checkouts and 2 cashiers. There's none of this self-serve. There's 20 cashiers. You're sitting there waiting in line. So what the heck is this? That's our border. Next thing you know, you get these bills. Oh, they bring 3 cashiers up. They bring 4. Well, 2 got to go home. Time for lunch. So that's all you get. You got to take care of the front end, and that's our borders. You've got to have a huge, huge bill that addresses everything. You can't just sit there and do this scare tactics. Oh, these killers are coming in. Look, we got a lot of killers. I just saw they just arrested the other day 42 members of this group out there. I don't know if you saw that, Bob, out there in California, a racketeer influenced and corporation organizations. Oh yeah, the white supremacists. There was 68 of them, and they're working with some of the mafia that's in the jail. They're going into stealing numbers, Social Security checks. They're branching out. There's no crime in here now.
I know. Appreciate your call. And as far as crime overall, well, especially violent crime around here, I've been covering crime around here long enough to have come to the conclusion most of the crime around here, especially violent crime, is being committed by people who've lived here for years or people who were born here. So it's not to say that there aren't the occasional high-profile crimes, killings or shootings or stabbings or serious assaults where the perpetrators haven't been here for quite a while. Of course that happens, but a lot of homegrown violent crime. It's 11:17 at WNBF, WNBF.com. Let's take more calls, shall we? Hi, WNBF. You're on the air. What's your first name? Where are you calling from?
This is Rita Bishop, and I'm calling from Endicott.
Oh, Lena Bishop. Aren't you one of the Democratic Party people in the village of Endicott?
I am.
Good morning.
Good morning, and how are you?
I'm well. How are things?
Oh, good. I'm just calling in. I just want to correct Congressman Molinaro. He said about the border. How come a question wasn't asked him? How come he didn't vote for the bipartisan bill? I guess when former President Trump called in, he told all the Republicans not to vote for it, and I guess Molinaro didn't vote for it. How come? Why wasn't that asked him?
Yeah, I think we've asked him before, but yeah.
What was his answer?
I don't know. I don't have the tape. But I'm pretty sure it had been asked and answered. But I know there's Lena Bishop. I can guarantee the one thing you and Tom from Endwell have in common: you're never going to like the questions I ask.
No, I like the questions you ask.
Well, or you're always going to find a question I didn't ask. That's the one thing. That's what I like. Lena from Endicott and Tom from Endwell can't agree on anything, but they can agree that Bob Joseph won't ask their question.
And we were at a town hall meeting in the village of Endicott. I think it was at the American Legion when he said he wanted a national abortion ban. So now he doesn't want it. Just because it's the thing to say about abortion, he just changed all his story all the way around to want women's rights. How come he didn't want it before?
Anything else that I haven't done right?
No, Bob.
Let me know. Let me know other questions. People should just start sending Bob at WNBF.com. Everybody should start sending in questions. When I have Mark Molinaro and Josh Riley on, be sure to send questions that you're mad because I didn't ask.
Why no one answered that question? That's all.
Yeah, I know. I think I explained earlier when Tom from Endwell was disappointed because I didn't ask his questions. I guarantee, I don't care who the candidates are, or even if it's not the election, if it's a mayor or a town supervisor or the county executive or Elon Musk, I guarantee I'm not going to ask your question. It's just the way it is, But I always appreciate hearing the feedback about questions. So it's not the interview. Now, here's something that's just to help balance this out, to show that not everybody is disgusted by questions I didn't ask last hour. Hi, Bob. By the way, this is a listener, and I know from the emails I receive, she and I may very much disagree on issues, but listen to her email. Great show today. Lots of pertinent information about the Mark and Josh campaigns. Of course, I agree with Tom from Endwell, but you did a good job interviewing Josh. I was really glad when Mark called you to counterpoint. Mark sounded much more at ease and knowledgeable about the issues. He's got my vote for sure. Thank you for your show. Take care. Gene from Vestal. So, as opposed to the people who are disgruntled by questions that didn't ask, like I said.
I didn't say I was disgruntled.
Well, I know, but I guarantee, it's as I said when Tom from Endwell called, if I'm sitting there with my big bowl of popcorn and my big bottle of water watching Leslie Stahl on 60 Minutes, I know the feeling because I want Leslie Stahl to ask my questions. But you know what? She never does.
Well, Bob, I agree.
So as opposed to just saying, well, for the 19 minutes Mark Molinaro was on and the 23 minutes that Josh Riley was on, we actually got quite a bit of information, and thanks. So, but there will always be questions that the interviewer won't ask. As opposed to just saying, call in and say whether you agree or disagree with the candidate. I will say whether it was Tom from Endwell or you, when you call in and say questions that weren't asked during a particular segment, I guarantee those questions have been posed to each of those candidates before. They've heard them before. It's on the record. It's on the record.
Well, it's not on the record when he gets on TV that he didn't vote for the border bill.
I know. It's not perfect, but that's why you and Lena from Endicott, I know you're a very engaged voter, and you get your information from multiple sources.
And I support Josh Riley too.
Yes,
just for the record.
Yeah, as I would expect. Wouldn't it be shocking if one of the key Democratic people from the village of Endicott said, no, I actually support the Republican incumbent? Of course you're going to support Josh.
Well, I agree with what he said.
Yeah, no, I understand. I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm saying it would be a shock. It'd be a shock to my system, Lena from Endicott, if you told me, and I like Josh, and I generally have agreed with him on most of the issues, and I'm glad that a guy from West Endicott.
We're not getting anywhere about it.
Anyway, no, I'm glad you called in, but I will stipulate, and people are free to always call in after every interview and say, well, I wish you asked this because, hey, maybe if I write it down, maybe the next time they're on, I'll ask. Maybe or maybe not. But, that's the nature of interviews.
I understand that.
Yeah. Well,
Well, thank you for taking my call.
Well, thank you for listening.
All right, take care.
All right, I'll see you on Birdsall Street.
Okay.
Bye-bye. I was going to go to Birdsall Street this morning, but I had a couple other things I needed to do. And June Street. And West Wendell. And East Franklin. And North Page. Oh, I love West Endicott. But I love all of New York State. Hi, WNBF. You're on the air. What's your first name? Where are you calling from?
Hi, I'm Dan from Binghamton. Good morning, Bob.
Good morning, sir. What's on your mind?
I'm a plumber, and I was working for a gentleman yesterday, and he's been a retired Medal of Valor winner in the city of Binghamton policeman, Mr. Edwards. And we were talking about immigration and stuff, and I wondered if he agreed with me that, all these people have been coming in this country for 200 years, let's just say 150 years, whatever. And he says, Dan, all these fellas that come in here, they were murderers and thugs wherever they came from. Okay? And then they came here and they started the same thing. He goes, I arrested Swedish people, Polish people, Irish people, German people, Italian people, and they were trouble wherever they came from, and they were trouble here. And he made, and we said that we both agreed that they keep talking about all these thousands of immigrants that are coming in killing people, and like he said, it's a very small minority of all the good people that do come in. And I just wonder what you thought about that.
Well, that's been my perception and my experience, is that most people who are in the United States, including, I think, a couple of people who I believe are in the U.S. illegally right now, living in Broome County. I can't prove that, but I believe that they are probably better and more law-abiding than some of the people that I encounter on a daily basis. So, and again, I'm not supporting people who wind up in the U.S. without going through the proper channels, but I also understand their motivation in a lot of cases. And got to say, if I were in their position, I might be in the United States illegally, and also working to get everything straightened out so it'd be totally legal. But in the meantime, I would do everything in my power to really contribute to our community and to our country. So, but
yeah,
as I've said before, and some listeners vehemently disagree, but I still believe I am extremely fortunate to have been born here in Binghamton, because if I was born in some of these other countries, Peru, Venezuela, Cuba, who knows? Who knows what would have happened? I don't take it for granted.
That's right. Hey, Bob, thanks for giving me a slant on it, buddy. Have a great day.
Thank you, sir. It's 11:27 at WNBF. More calls, more often. Hi, you're on the air. This is Bob Joseph. What's your first name? Where are you calling from?
Anonymous.
Mr. Anonymous, yeah. Okay, Mr. Anonymous from the Forks. Morning.
Morning, Bob. I once heard another caller do that, say he was anonymous, but we all know who he was.
Yeah. Well, let's face it, we're all part of the big NBF family, and you know what? We don't have to agree. In fact, I've said it before. I don't want to live in a world where most people agree with me. I really don't, and I certainly don't want to host a show where most of the callers are, yeah, Bob, yeah, man, and look, I like everybody's view. I enjoy talking to those in agreement and those who disagree. So anyway, what's on your mind, Vic?
I disagree. No.
Hey, you're supposed to be far more. We want hot talk, baby. You gotta say, Bob, you're doing everything wrong. You asked none of the right questions. Why didn't you ask whatever about the price of tea in China? But you also have to have that aggrieved tone in your voice to really make hot talk happen.
Bob, you only got a 3-hour show. How are you going to ask all the right questions?
That's true.
All right, but in any case, politics today. These politicians. I like Molinaro, and not because he's Republican or whatever, but he doesn't get on there and say I don't accept corporate money. And Josh Riley does. But Josh Riley does accept corporate money when he takes money from Schumer and Pelosi because they are funded by corporate money. So it might not be directly, and it might be. Nobody knows the truth. But I think that saying that you don't receive corporate money nowadays, but yet you receive Democratic Party money, which is mostly corporate money and banks and things like that. I think you need to tell the people the truth. I have a distaste for Josh Riley because he did that. And Bob, I would cross party lines in a heartbeat for the right person. You know that. And
I've seen it done.
Yeah,
I witnessed it.
By me.
Yes, by you.
Yes, you have.
Up at Davies, no less.
Yes, and I, after listening to Matt, I'm sorry, but the last few calls you made, I'm kind of sorry.
Oh, no, you're not.
No, not really.
No, but that was for that election. I mean, look, what is good, or what, in my opinion, what's great about the program, everybody has an opportunity to chime in, and everybody can hear what the other callers have to say. And it doesn't look, you don't have to agree with any other caller, but that doesn't mean you dislike them.
I don't.
And that's the whole thing.
I don't dislike anybody.
I mean, life is too short to dislike anybody. I don't dislike anyone. And sometimes I really wish people would focus on issues and not say, criticize some other caller by name. Just talk about the issue. Move forward instead of saying, well, I disagree with what that other person said. I mean, yeah, you would know. Our listeners would know you disagree with that person because you'd bring up an issue and say, this is how I feel about it. But
I'm sorry, Bob. I heard you, but I got distracted.
No, that's okay.
I got 2 bucks fighting in my backyard.
Good times, baby.
Let me get the gun. Anyway, Anyway,
now Pete is going to call in. Come on, man.
Right? Leave that poor deer alone. Pay the price of beef in the grocery stores nowadays. There's no poor deer. But
well, I did see one on the side of the road on the Parkway this morning. But
that's a poor deer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So bottom line, say with the congressional race, what are your thoughts? I mean, that they're, as I mentioned to both Josh Riley and Mark Molinaro, it certainly seems there are two overriding issues that they're focusing on, both in their interviews and in their campaign commercials. So what do you think is going to happen? And it seems that it's going to be very close, but what's your sense of how it's going to turn out in 3 weeks?
I'm hoping Molinaro wins. Like I said, not because he's a Republican, but because I believe he's the better choice. And I just think that would be the way to go. And I think Trump is going to win. A lot of people aren't going to like me saying that, but I think
most of our listeners will.
Oh,
remember, you're on NBF. I mean, most of our listeners, maybe not most of our callers, most of our listeners are probably saying, yeah, man, you tell them.
We talk about the issues, Bob, and that's basically why I called. I wish the callers would ask more about the issues, what's facing our country, than talking or downgrading either presidential candidate, by saying mean and cruel things about them. What we need to talk about are the issues and make people aware of the issues in this country. The border's the big one. The abortion's the big one. I'm pro-life. And that's my stance on that issue right there, is that we need to talk about what's affecting your wallet and your lifestyle. And was the last 4 years good for you or bad for you? That's basically the question you have to ask yourself. And
and another question, that's important. Are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? And then, to the best of your ability, which requires closing your eyes and trying to imagine, how do you think the next 4 years will be with one candidate? And then how do you think the next 4 years will be with the other candidate? And again, nobody knows, because we can't see in the future, and we can only base our impression for that type of exercise based on what we've seen and heard the candidates do. So I do agree. The simple question, are you better off today than you were 4 years ago? Many people will take that into account when they vote this year. But I do think looking ahead, and also, I'm surprised that it gets such little attention, because after a person becomes president, then it becomes the source of a lot of concern. It is very important because of the justices who will be selected for the Supreme Court in the next 4 years.
Yeah, Bob, just two things real quick. I feel, you asked me a question about how I would feel if either candidate won. I would feel America would be weakened by Kamala. I believe that with all my heart. It's already been weakened for the last 4 years. We get no respect overseas. And I think the General Tilley, or whoever he is, bad-mouthing Trump, I think he's right. He is going to get court-martialed if Trump wins for saying the things he said.
Should he? Should he get court-martialed?
Yes, so the truth comes out. Just so that the truth comes out about why he's saying the things he is. And the other thing I wanted to say, Bob, you run some good debates on your show. I would love to see a debate between Lisa O'Keefe and Donald Lopardo, or hear it on the radio. Get them both in the studio. I think that would be a very good debate. I'm backing Lisa O'Keefe. I donated to her campaign. I have no idea how much. But I think Lisa is a better choice. She has good value. She doesn't believe in catch and release in the prison, of criminals in New York State. I know she wants to fight for lower taxes. But what I'm aware of, Bob, is that all these candidates who get up there and say, I will fight for you. I will fight to lower taxes. I'm 70 years old, Bob, and I've never seen it happen.
Yeah, lower taxes. I know, appreciably lower taxes, not a fraction of a percent. Anyway, thank you, Vic. Appreciate your call.
Hey, take care.
1137 WNBF with more calls. If you have a desire to talk on the radio, we certainly have sufficient telephone capacity at the moment. 607-772-1290. Bob Joseph, Binghamton Now, WNBF. Well, let's go back to the busy phones. Anonymous in Owego. Good morning. You're on the air.
I never thought I would say this, Big Guns, but I would challenge Mark Marinaro and Josh Riley. They can come to the Howard Mansion here on historic Lake Street in Owego, and I want to hear an intelligent discussion. And the biggest thing I want to hear about, where are the real issues and what is going to benefit we, the people. That's the biggest thing I want. And then I want to bring up corporate donations, because if it's true, I heard about NYSEG donating. NYSEG's not even owned by anyone in America. It's owned by Spain. So are they trying to influence the election? Makes me wonder, and how many other corporations are doing the same. In my opinion, I don't think any corporation should be allowed to donate to politicians because it's influence. That is almost illegal, but they got their roundabout ways of going about it.
All right. I appreciate your contributions. Keep an eye out there for anybody who is putting up one of those giant strawberries.
I got you. Oh, by the way, if they do dare take on that challenge, you are cordially invited because you got better questions than I got.
Okay. I'll bring the Moxies.
Oh, what about banana cream soda?
I only have one can left, and that's from me.
I'll talk to Steve for you, see if he can get a case.
Thank you. Actually, I know my supplier who could get me more if I need it. I don't drink that much soda anyway, so I really don't need it. For all the talk you hear about Moxie and other soda, I think on average I may drink one soda a month. I mean, some months will differ, but on average. But boy, do I talk about it a lot. Hi, Chris from Endicott. You're on the air. Good morning.
Good morning, sir. I see you're getting beat up on the radio pretty much today.
Well, I don't know if it's beat up. I guess it's to be expected that people are disappointed that I didn't ask their question. But as I said, I feel the same thing when I'm watching Leslie Stahl or any other interviewer, because I in my mind, I have my own questions that I'd like to have asked. So I understand where folks are coming from.
So this is your feel-good story for the day, then. So at Most Holy Rosary, the Oktoberfest, you guys have Bill Parker. He, I don't know if he was there or not. Was he there broadcasting?
Probably back in the day.
Oh, back in the day. So I don't know who was doing it, because I know they said somebody was saying that they were going to be there Friday.
Oh, you mean this week? Oh, okay. Well, obviously Bill Parker.
No, this was the 4th of October.
Oh.
This was 2 weeks ago.
Well, maybe it was Bill Flynn.
Bill Flynn. Perfect.
Yeah.
So that's who it was.
Okay, I was going to say, Bill Parker sadly hasn't been with us for a while, but yes, of course. Bill Flynn.
No. So anyways, but yeah, that was a great time. So when the BC bagpiper showed up, it was standing room only.
Ah, well, I wish I was there. I have to make a point to show up next October.
Yes. So anyways, it was just one of those things. The food was awesome. The pierogies, the halupis, the clam chowder. A huge shout out to Most Holy for putting that event on. It's a great time every time me and the wife go.
All right. Well, I'm glad you had fun, and thanks for offering a menu for today's lunch. Now I'm hungry.
Well, and so if Bill Parker was there, maybe I could have gotten his autograph while I was there.
Yeah, well, maybe he was there in spirit.
Oh, no, Bill Flynn. That's what I wanted to say.
Yeah, I know. Chris, thanks for your call.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bill Flynn. Weekends, WNBF, Saturday and Sunday. Dave from Vestal, you're on the air.
Yeah, good morning, sir. Little sore throat this morning, so bear with me. Bob, I had to respond. You know, this border stuff, think back, Bob. You know, everybody keeps ignoring. They call in and they talk about the border and that darn bill, how it was going to solve everything. Bob, back when Trump was in, the border was never like it was as it's been under Biden, Bob. It was never like that. We didn't have anywhere near. We didn't get flooded like that. And everyone keeps ignoring that. Same with crime, Bob. But look what happened with crime, the revolving door. Patting all the criminals.
Yeah, Biden had nothing to do with that. Biden and Kamala Harris had nothing to do with that.
Bob, the border, this border bill stuff, Bob, it's not even close.
No, you're talking about, though, the criminals who some people say get in and before you know it, they're back on the street. Remember, Kamala Harris had nothing to do with our great criminals who may, in fact, wind up being hauled in and long enough maybe to get a photograph taken in their personal information, then they're back on the street. Remember, Kamala Harris has nothing to do with what happens here in New York State with our accused criminals.
Across the country, Bob, with all those DAs, you know what I'm talking about. But again, though, at the border, Bob, something has to be done other than the bill. They have to pay, Bob. You don't think that them letting in all these prospective voters, that's why they did it, Bob. Why did you think they let them all in? Because they felt sorry for them? No, they want them here. They want amnesty. They're leaving. And I'm tired of everyone ignoring the fact that they were purposely allowed in illegally, felony on that. They should be arrested, Bob. The whole, all of them. Biden, Harris.
Calm down, please.
Yeah. Huh?
I said, yeah, I agree, man. All right, well, I appreciate your calling in.
Yeah, but I'm sorry I got excited.
No, that's okay. Well, watch out. If you're at the Town Square Mall, watch out. There might be some Peruvian gang leader hanging out there trying to buy a jacket.
You know what I'm saying, though, Bob?
I hear you, man.
Let them in on purpose, right?
No.
Right?
Wrong. Wrong-o.
Okay. Oh, well, why was it so different?
I don't know. Donald Trump isn't on the program today, so I can't ask him. But the next time he's on, if he comes on between now and November 5th, that might be one of the questions I'll ask. Appreciate your call. I was going to say, in my dreams. Just like that last time, a decade ago. Yeah, we got a call from Trump's office. Do you want to talk to him? No. But that's how it happened, so. Hope springs eternal. Yeah, I have a better chance of Kamala Harris calling in. I admit that, and that's also slim and none. Or I could go buy one of those $10 Mega Billion tickets and enjoy my unluckiness. Bob Joseph, still more calls coming up. Don't touch that dial, America. 92.1 FM, 1290 AM, and stay connected using the convenient and free WNBF app. The thing nobody brings up on this program is what the Republican candidate has to say about the enemy from within. So this was posted online, and it's a comment that Donald Trump made to Maria Bartiromo on Fox News. So listen to this. This is a snippet that somebody posted on Twitter. Again, it is billed as a Fox News exclusive. And Maria was talking with the Republican presidential candidate, Donald Trump. Listen carefully to the question and also listen to his response. Pay close attention, will you?
Let's remember, you've got 50,000 Chinese nationals in this country in the last couple of years. Yeah. You have people on the terrorist watch list, 350 in the last couple of years. You got, like you said, 13,000 murderers and 15,000 rapists. Right. What are you expecting? Joe Biden said he doesn't think it's going to be a peaceful election day.
Well, he doesn't have any idea what's happening in all fairness. He spends most of his day sleeping. I think the bigger problem is the enemy from within, not even the people that have come in and destroying our country. By the way, totally destroying our country. The towns, the villages, they're being inundated. But I don't think they're the problem in terms of election day. I think the bigger problem are the people from within. We have some very bad people. We have some sick people, radical left lunatics. And I think they're and it should be very easily handled by, if necessary, by National Guard, or if really necessary, by the military, because they can't let that happen.
So he wants people he disagrees with, who he describes as radical left lunatics, he wants them to be handled easily by the National Guard, or if they can't be handled easily by the National Guard, if really necessary, by the military. And I know other people elsewhere on other programs have brought it up, but the National Guard and the military handling the people who disagree, the radical left lunatics. So if you're just a regular left lunatic, maybe the National Guard won't be sent out to handle you. But potentially, if you're a radical left lunatic, that could be a problem. It's 11:53, WNBF. Military being used against Americans. Oof. Yikes. Oh, well. There will be, of course, more October surprises. October is half over, but there will be a lot of additional surprises for the rest of October. You ain't seen nothing yet, or I guess more appropriately, you ain't heard nothing yet when it comes to October surprises. The best surprises are yet to come, and that could come from either campaign. It could come from the enemy within, and depending who you are, you know the enemy within could be, I guess, anyone who you disagree with. Radical left lunatics, radical right lunatics, sick people, healthy people, easily handled, if necessary, by the National Guard, or if really necessary, by the military. Can you imagine the United States military being directed to handle political foes? All right, we're moving into Springfield to handle some political foes. We're going to start at 0400. Check out WNBF.com for some interesting local stories. We do keep an eye on new businesses, expanding businesses, closing businesses, happy businesses, unhappy businesses. WNBF.com is a good source for some local information. And every once in a while, when these new businesses pop up, we tell you what's going on. Some people drive by, for example, the former ice cream place down in Crestview Heights on 17C. People are saying, gee, Raj, what's that all about? And I say, well, surely you know what it's about because we wrote the story about it last July. And then I say to myself, but wait, people can't remember necessarily the story I reported last July when I talked to the two guys who had just bought the former ice cream shop property. I mean, we ran the story in July that they were going to start up a business called Light Years Fermentation. And they did. So they did. And then they opened it. And then we did an updated story now that it's open. So if you want more information on that new business or other businesses that might be starting up or businesses expanding or businesses that might close, WNBF.com. It's sort of the business section of the local internet, WNBF.com. That's our program for today. Thank you so much for joining us. Tomorrow's program will be even more interesting. I'm Bob Joseph. Keep listening all day to WNBF.